Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens.
Okay, thank you. Good morning from my side as well. So we will now talk about really data maturity and cultural maturity, right? How can you really increase your readiness and tackle these challenges you may have from a cultural or data perspective, right? So initially, let's really focus on the data maturity first, right? What that really means, we want to go from the left-hand side you see here, right, all the way to the right. That's where we want to move on this chart, right? We want to increase the data maturity. After that, we're going to look into the other axis and tackle the cultural maturity, and then go from the bottom to the top, right? So we end up in this nice green rectangle here on the top right. That's where we want to be, right? So as Rob mentioned in the beginning, right, we can kind of support the entire journey, right? It's not just, okay, here's a predictive maintenance solution. We also support the journey on how we get there, right? How do we get into a position where we are able to use and implement a predictive maintenance solution, right? And we can tackle both of these things here, data maturity and cultural maturity in specific. Okay, let's talk about data maturity first. So there are different ways on how to get mature from a data perspective. We will really focus here now on the connectivity piece here, right? It's also about what kind of data to collect, right? Where are the right data points and so on. But right now we are really focusing here on the shop floor to cloud connectivity first. Shop floor to cloud connectivity really means, okay, we have machines on the shop floor, right? We need to access this data somewhere. Somehow. And as Rob mentioned in the beginning, some facilities, they don't even have sensors, right? So we can, of course, help selecting the right sensors, the right vibration sensors, for example, which is critical for what you will do with the data, right? And also where you position these sensors, right? So where do you put the sensors on the machine? What kind of sensors do you need potentially, right? And then on top of this, of course, what you see on the right side, we also can interface with the data, right? So we have maybe our kind of native S7, we have OPC UA, Modbus, Ethernet IP, right? Whatever you can dream of, essentially, right? Siemens, or we have a solution as Siemens, right? So we support these interfaces. So and generally, we have three options, right, to support these interfaces. Number one, that would be our Industrial Edge framework. Industrial Edge is really a solution which you would select not just for connectivity, right, but maybe you want to expand and do more with the data than predictive maintenance, right? You can use this data, for example, also for AI on the shop floor, right? Use the computational power close to the shop floor. But in this case, Industrial Edge also functions as you see in the middle, a gateway and data pre-processing entity to push data forward to the cloud to Senseye, right? So the data pre-processing in the middle can be done through the Industrial Edge. It can also be done through so Industrial Edge can be a hardware solution, it can be a virtualized device as well. So there are different ways on how you can set up Industrial Edge, right? But the most common way to do this is really having a hardware close to the shop floor, which with a little bit more computational power, which can function as a gateway, but also do more for you, right? And next option would be, for example, a brownfield connector, right? That would be a software-only solution, so we don't necessarily need hardware on the shop floor. Again, same thing here. It functions as a gateway and data pre-processing. This is natively integrated with Senseye Predictive Maintenance, similarly to Industrial Edge. And then, of course, we can also talk about SCADA, right? Of course, ideally, from Siemens perspective, what we can provide is WinCC UA and WinCC OA. So these things can also function as a gateway and data pre-processing platform. And then we can send this data to the cloud finally, right? So again, shop floor to cloud connectivity, when we talk about data maturity as Siemens, we can definitely support, right? What's already there, brownfield scenarios, we can make sure that these machines are connected, can be connected, right? We can hook up sensors and so on the shop floor level, and then we can route this data all the way to Senseye, so you can actually leverage kind of the attention engine and the predictive maintenance capabilities from Senseye, right? So we close the gap from shop floor to cloud with all connectivity solutions, right? And we, of course, before we would do anything like that and just come on with a certain solution, we would perform an assessment upfront to understand what is your current situation and what would be the ideal solution for you here to get the data into the cloud, or maybe you want to do more with the data, right? So But that's just one option, shop floor to cloud, right? A lot of customers, they also have something like this in place, right? An off-the-shelf IoT platform. Ideally, you, of course, have Insights Hub from Siemens, but that's, of course, not always the case, right? So what we do here is we have developed a standard connectors, right? So we have supported, we support certain IoT platforms natively, so it's plug and play essentially. Of course, we have to do some configuration, but you see here on the right side, we support ThingWorx from PTC, Insight from Aviva, so all the big players really, right? So this is what we currently support. Again, if you already have connected the data, you have a very good OT/IT connectivity, and you have everything sitting in a data lake, then it's fairly easy to send this or use Senseye to do something with that data, right? And again, Senseye is really the market leader when it comes to predictive maintenance, right? Due to this special attention engine and anomaly detection framework we are using, right? Okay, so that's one, right? That's the second option. Option one, there's really a mix where we don't have any connectivity. Here you have maybe collected all the data in a standard platform, right? Like ThingWorx, Insights Hub, and so on. And now finally, we also have the option that some customers, they have developed their own custom platform, right? This custom platform can also be connected to Senseye, of course, to our predictive maintenance platform. It may require a little bit more work, but again, it's not a major effort to go into that direction, right? We have here open APIs we can use, right? REST API, MQTT. I mean, there are a lot of ways on how we can push data into Senseye. In this case, there's also a file availability if you just really can publish files, right? Discrete files. We also have a file push capability, right? Okay, so this is what's really just to summarize this, right? We are now going back into this overview chart, and from this chart's perspective, we ideally with these things I've just shared with you, and there's of course much more to uncover and discover, right? But with these items I just shared, we can definitely move you from the left side here, right, from a data maturity perspective, all the way to the right side, right, and get you ready for predictive maintenance. Now, a little bit more challenging a lot of times, and we have also seen this in the poll from earlier, is really the cultural maturity, right? And cultural maturity is also something we tackle as Siemens, right? We have our own production facilities similar to data maturity, right? We use all these connectivity tools ourselves, right? Solutions and tools ourselves. Same for cultural maturity. We have to do these things ourselves, right? We have to evaluate how our maintenance teams are working, right? What our asset management strategy is, and so on. So we of course offer this externally, right? We don't just do it for ourselves, we offer it for all the customers in the industry. And what we usually encounter in the industry is something like this, right? We have really challenges all across the board. It can start with a simple business plan, a simple maintenance plan which is not existing, right? There's no strategy, no scheduling, or it's incomplete, right? Or you just may want to have a check against what the baseline is you have, right? So it's all over the place, right? There may be no structure, there's no reliability assessment, right? No KPIs on how to measure really success, right? When do you replace something, for example? So that it's not just about predictive maintenance in this context, right? But about maintenance strategy in general. So when we talk about cultural maturity, it's about a maintenance strategy in general, right? And one key component that's where you want to end up with is predictive maintenance, right? And all these things you see here are the typical challenges or issues we may face. And what we are doing here, we have developed kind of a 3-step approach on how to really have an adequate maintenance program in place for you, right? So we would start off with a review, of course, then we would develop an improvement program, and then we would execute on that program, right? So this is really on a high level how this would look like. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the details. But once you go through this program, right, or while going through this program, we will get to a point where you are mature enough from a cultural perspective, right, from a process perspective, and so on, to really target a predictive maintenance solution, right? That's the idea here. Okay, so what does it mean in detail? Well, as I just mentioned, right, when we talk about maintenance benchmark, or maintenance planning in itself, we would start off with a review, right? We would want to understand, okay, what are your strengths, where are your potentials, right? We would definitely conduct workshops and interviews with the workforce. We have a standardized approach here, and I'm going to show you really these 31 elements we would examine here, right? 7 categories, 31 elements, all the way from asset management policy throughout planning and scheduling, performance control, and so on. So we will see this in a second, but it's very sophisticated, the approach here. And by the end of this benchmark review, you will see where you stand right now, where the industry is, right? And where your potential is, and maybe where you want to be, right? So this is kind of the result of this benchmark review, and I have an example here as well in a second. Once we have gone through this review, we would develop a maintenance improvement program and really kind of strategize and prioritize what's most important to you, right? Again, workshops would follow. We would define long-term, short-term, middle-term, and long-term solutions, right? And really prioritize that. Once we have developed this maintenance improvement program, we would really go into the execution. So we would, again, then assign people to these different points we want to improve, right? Really assign people and continuously stay in touch with you to see where you run into additional problems potentially, or where you need additional support, or for example, right? And then we could at the end follow up with an additional analysis to see where you're at right now and what may have been the pitfalls, or where you may struggle, where Siemens can help me even more, right? But again, throughout this entire program, you would eventually reach a maturity level where you could leverage a predictive maintenance solution, right? And now let's just look into this for a second as an example, right? So the maintenance benchmark review, right? The maintenance service analysis, what we call this here. Again, we have these 7 categories we would examine, right? Asset management policy, as I mentioned, we would understand also spare part management tools, and so on. And then we have these subcategories as well. And as you can see here, we also have certain digital focused elements, and that's where predictive maintenance would fall into, right? So we would examine what you already have there, right? CMMS, for example, and so on, all the solutions you may already have. And then also when and how the predictive maintenance would fit into the picture, right? So we would see where are you now and where could you be in the future. And then after that, or consecutive and in parallel, develop a roadmap, right? The result of going through these 7 categories and subcategories here, we would be something like this, right? We would really understand, okay, where's the industry right now? You would already have this information from us, right? What's the worst case in the industry, really depicted in blue here, and then what's the best case, right? And where are you right now, right? And then based on that, we can develop really, or we can dive into the details and see how do we improve your current organization from a maintenance perspective to get where you want to be, right? But it's very important to establish a baseline of where you are right now, and then establish a program to change the organization, right? To bring this cultural maturity in your organization, right? Changing processes and so on. And then develop a roadmap, include the employees on the shop floor in these reviews, in the interviews, and so on. So everybody is connected, realizes what's happening, and so on, right? That's very important. And finally, again, with these 2 items I just talked about, I'm going to hand it back over to Eric, right? We now have an understanding on how to improve data maturity and cultural maturity, right? So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Stefan. That was great. Lots of great details in there. What tools and services we can offer to help you all on the call. Move yourself up to the maturity status there. So we're just going to take a look at the poll results that we asked a few minutes ago. Just understanding, where you might be on your roadmap and in your plans for predictive maintenance. You can see here, a lot of people are working on this. This is definitely something we've seen from customers that we talk to as well. They know all this data is available. They know you can make amazing decisions from this data. It's just how do you do it, and you have to develop a plan. So that's not about just dropping in a piece of software and it gives you the answer. There is things you have to do to prepare for that, and that's definitely what we've seen today. So interesting results there. Rob, would like to talk through an example of a customer that we did work with and changing their maturity level and moving up to successful implementation of predictive maintenance. I'll hand it back over to you for that example.
Yeah, thanks very much, Eric. So what I'd like to talk about is a client that we've got. It's a global automotive manufacturer with plants in Europe and North America, several in North America, and even starting to expand into Central America. The key aspect here was that the focus was in and around scaling existing skills. Right? So they knew that they had capability within their organization that was able to understand the output of data-driven systems. But the focus here was to drive forward that cultural adoption of the technology, but also make sure that the technology wasn't perceived as threatening. Right? What we're trying to do is help people engage and work in a more effective manner. Now, what was really interesting insight is that they didn't jump straight to measuring the business impact. They started off by implementing key performance indicators or targets and objectives related to the rollout and of the system and the onboarding. So this was them trying to remove the technical barriers. So, was the resistance to actually technically connecting up? Can we prove that our workforce is capable of connecting these machines up to a cloud solution? And the next stage was really in and around removing barriers for adoption. So starting to take measurements about the utilization of the Senseye app. And we actually work very closely with them in developing new features within the application that allows you to track this, so we can see how long it's taking for people to respond to notifications, how many open notifications are there, and what sort of things are people putting onto the watch lists. Then after that, this is when you started to implement the measures that were actually related to the business. So we've proven that we can technically roll it out. We've proven we can get the workforce using it. Now let's start to build the evidence that we can take back to the senior management team or the board to show that we're having a positive impact on the business. We're reducing downtime, maintaining the uptime of machines, maybe removing preventative maintenance. And the key type of outcomes were exactly those things. There was a reduction in preventative maintenance tasks, and some removed entirely, right? So there was significant savings in the sort of preventative insurance-based type of tasks. And then there was less time spent just checking machines and more time spent actually resolving real problems and ensuring greater efficiency. And that all has a positive impact on, the unplanned downtime avoided, being measured in the millions of dollars, but importantly as well is this more precise maintenance and the better use of skilled workforce. And I think this is a really key thing in this digital world that we're moving into, and the areas where we're talking about AI and machine learning. It's about scaling humans and making the best use of the skills that you have in your team. And then also having an impact on sustainability targets, using less consumables, having parts that are on the machine longer and extending component lives, avoiding secondary damage. They're all very sort of key aspects that come into those sustainability targets that a lot of organizations are worried about today. So Eric, I'll hand it back to you. I think it's over to the Q&A session.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah. One of the things that I think is amazing with this customer you're talking about is that they're probably actually off the chart on the maturity level. That they're beyond, because what they've done is they've reinvest the dollars that they've saved in predictive maintenance. So the dollars they've saved in maintenance and downtime and such into gathering new sources of data that was never available for them. Like temperatures of oils and other pieces, and they're feeding that back into their system too. So they're actually getting even smarter about their predictive maintenance. Exactly. Fascinating to talk to that customer for sure.
And it's become like a virtuous circle, right?
Yeah. So great. Yeah. So we have a little bit of time here left for some Q&A, and there's some good questions that have come in. So I'm going to take the easy ones. I see that a couple of folks asked about recording being available or the presentation. You'll definitely get links to the recording of this webinar, and we'll make sure to post the presentation slides so you can have access to refer back to that as well. I see a couple of questions about connectivity. Maybe these are good for you, Stefan. So I'll combine some of these together. So there's questions about third-party sensors. I know you covered a little bit about that, but we could probably relook at that. And then also connecting to other standalone systems like Factory Talk and such. Maybe you just revisit the connectivity piece of that as well.
Yes. You want me to? Yeah,
yes,
we
please,
can. Yeah, so there's one specific question about third-party sensors to Senseye, right? I'm not sure when this question was asked, probably very, very, very much in the beginning, right? So I think, yes, we can work with third-party sensors. Siemens is not the strongest when it comes to sensors, manufacturing them ourselves, right? We have a few vibration sensors where we are very good at, but again, there are other sensors out there, right? We also have, so we have sensors available, but it might not be the right thing for your use case. So it can be, we support third-party sensors and we can work with third-party sensors as well, right? So, yeah.
And then the piece about connecting to other standalone systems like Factory Talk, for instance.
Yeah, that again, we have several different ways to connect, right? Again, in this case, we would not replace that system, right? We would use most likely in this case the APIs Senseye provides, right? We would integrate that directly with Senseye through the APIs, but again, we would have to understand the use case or the situation in detail. But generally possible, right? That will fall under the category of customer solution, right? Where we don't have a standard connector or we don't use Siemens connectivity tools, right? Mm-hmm. Definitely possible.
Good.
And I'd say, Eric, that's probably the majority of our customer base, right? We like to think we're machine type agnostic, right? So we're not linked to Siemens machines. We can monitor the wide variety of machines, and data source agnostic. Whatever we'll build on top of the technology you already have is the key message.
And that's a good transition, I think, to the first question with right. There was one question. Yeah, we are not limited to production, I guess. HVAC, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Rob, I see a question here. We didn't touch on this because we'll probably follow it on a different webinar, but the question was, where to go? Oh, it's about developing algorithms to predict failure. So I think it's interesting because it's not about developing algorithms and being data scientists with Senseye, right? It's about using existing models that we already have inside the software. Maybe you could just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So somebody once sort of described Senseye as more of a scalpel, so rather than a multi-tool, right? So it does one thing really well, and what we do really well is predictive maintenance. Opposed to there's some other vendors out there that market the fact that you can use maybe their AI platform to develop your own predictive maintenance solution, but that relies on you knowing how to put all those elements together. Whereas my team have focused on what is the challenge of utilizing time series and condition monitoring data that's coming from machines and using that to determine their condition and inform about degradations on those machines. And for us, it's more than just the core algorithms that find that unusual behavior. It's the entire workflow we've put around it to interact with the user, gather feedback, and then improve the solution over time with that feedback from the user.
Good, thanks. Let's see, there's a question about does it cost less using the Siemens software like Insights Hub versus others? I guess that's tough to answer because it really is about, again, where you are in the data maturity, if you're already using something in the plant or not. I don't know. Stefan, do you want to, let's see, maybe answer that from, I guess on how we work together to try to figure out what the best solution is for connectivity.
Yeah, so Senseye is actually integrated into Insights Hub, right? It's running embedded into Insights Hub. So you can do that, right? It can run standalone, or if you have an Insights Hub ecosystem already in place, you can just run it within Insights Hub. Regarding cost, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Rob knows more about that. I can't answer that. But so you can, of course, develop your own solutions with regard to predictive maintenance based on Insights Hub data, right? that's a way to go forward. But again, you always have to understand make versus buy, right? I mean, if you make it, you have to maintain it. There's a lot of costs involved, a lot of engineering involved. We have done the work, right? Rob, you can talk about it, how much we have spent here and how successful we are around the globe with major customers, right? In hundreds of plants, I think, in the meanwhile. But I would not see it as a either or question, or not really. You can embed Senseye into Insights Hub, and you can use the full functionality of Senseye in Insights Hub, and that's the best value that you get for your data, right? You can do the best for predictive maintenance perspective with that data with Senseye. I hope that makes sense. Rob,
and like you said, Stefan, earlier on your presentation, we can really work with you to understand what the best strategy is, if it's Insights Hub or not, or if it's another piece of technology or something you already have installed. We can work with you to decide what the best solution there is. So awesome questions. I know there's a few more that have come in. We kind of run out of time to address these. We'll make sure we reach out to you individually. We know who kind of wrote the questions, and we could get out to you directly to answer those. So thanks for all the participation with the questions. Lastly, I guess leave you with this slide here. If you'd like to find out more information from us, you got a couple ways here. So first, you can download that readiness report that Rob talked about, which is really the report that we saw from our customer base in the past and the readiness and how they overcame that. So awesome piece of content there to read. The second link here is a link where you can find just more information, more little soft movie clips, things to download, white papers, some information about different industries and implementing predictive maintenance. Great information there. Lastly, if you want to contact us directly, please feel free to shoot me an email, and we can reach out to you, set up an appointment with one of our sales representatives and one of our experts to walk through what you're looking for. And then lastly, one more way if you want to reach out, we'll just pop open a poll question here. If you'd like someone from our Senseye team to reach out to you to talk about a project, you can click on yes, and we'll make sure we reach out to you immediately, or maybe you're not interested at this time, and you can take a look at some of those other materials that we have available for you. If you're not quick enough to take a picture here, we'll also send this information out as a follow-up to this webinar as well, where you can have access to these links. So again, thanks a lot for your time today and joining us in this webinar. Really appreciate that. We'll be sending out information later on for some other webinars where you can take a deeper dive into the product as well. So again, thanks a lot for joining, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.